Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Eurostat's latest webinar, which will be on macroeconomic statistics. I'm John Berender, and I work in Eurostat on macroeconomic statistics, and I'll be the moderator for this session this morning. The event will be recorded, just to let you know, and indeed, if you would like to ask questions during the webinar or when we move to a Q&A session later on, please feel free to use the slido.com code here that you see to my left. So that's #3968065. You can enter questions at any time, and then when we get to the Q&A after the presentations, we'll be able to deal with them. So without further ado, let's get into the event, and I'd like to introduce, to kick us off, the director here at Eurostat of Macroeconomic Statistics. He's Mr. František Bernardic. So František, please go ahead with your presentation.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me warmly welcome you to the webinar on macroeconomic statistics. Well, macroeconomic statistics, which include national accounts and balance of payment statistics, play a crucial role in understanding and managing the economic performance of countries and regions, including the European Union. National accounts provide a comprehensive overview of a country's economic performance. In the context of the EU, aggregated national accounts help to assess the overall economic health of the entire region. Key indicators like gross domestic product, which is basically the total value added of goods and services produced by an economy, are essential for monitoring economic growth and identifying trends. National accounts are also crucial for policy formulation and evaluation. Policymakers in the EU rely on national accounts to formulate and evaluate economic policies. By analyzing GDP components, consumption, investment, government spending, and net exports, policymakers can tailor strategies to promote economic stability and growth. National accounts are widely used for administrative purposes in the EU. Gross national income largely determines the contribution of each member state to the EU budget. Regional GDP is at the basis of the allocation of structural funds. Indicators of government debt and deficit derived from the national accounts are used for the excessive deficit procedure, which monitors countries' compliance with the Maastricht criteria. The balance of payments accounts for a country's economic transactions with the rest of the world. In the case of the EU, balance of payment statistics help to assess the region's external trade and financial interactions. Balance of payments data also show if a country or the EU has been a net borrower or net lender of financial funds, of course vis-à-vis the rest of the world during a certain period of time by looking at the balance of the current and capital account. For a monetary union like the EU, where multiple countries use euro, balance of payment statistics are crucial for understanding the external value of the currency. They help policymakers and central banks to make informed decisions about exchange rate policies and interventions to maintain competitiveness in international markets. National accounts and balance of payment statistics provide crucial information to monitor macroeconomic imbalances in the EU. This includes trade imbalances, fiscal deficits, and other factors that may impact the overall economic stability of the given region. As a union of sovereign states, the EU requires an effective policy coordination. Macroeconomic statistics enable member states to align their economic policies, fostering a more integrated and stable economic environment. And last but not least, the macroeconomic indicators are also largely used by investors to assess the financial stability of the national economies and to make informed investment decisions. In summary, macroeconomic statistics are indispensable tools for policymakers, analysts, and investors in the EU. They provide a comprehensive picture of the economic performance, guide policy decisions, and contribute to the overall stability and prosperity of the region. National accounts and balance of payment statistics are compiled in the EU following international standards that ensure comparability worldwide. The so-called 2008 System of National Accounts and the 6th edition of the Balance of Payments Manual. These standards are currently being updated to reflect changes in the global economic environment, advancements in economic theory, as well as measurement techniques, and to address emerging challenges. Eurostat, the United Nations, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and the OECD oversee the update process. It is important to note that revisions to international statistical standards involve a collaborative process among countries and international organizations. The envisaged changes aimed at better reflecting the technological changes and the increasing importance of the digital economy, improving the measurement of global value chains and the internationalization of the production processes, integrate social and environmental considerations into the national accounts in order to provide a more comprehensive understanding of well-being and sustainability and the social and environmental impact of economic activities. This webinar will go into more details on macroeconomic statistics and the ongoing process to update the macroeconomic standards. Thank you very much for your attention and enjoy the webinar.
Thank you very much, František, for giving us a great overview of macroeconomic statistics. And now what we'll do is we'll dive into more of the detail, particularly in the ongoing work and the update of the manuals. So to help us with that, we have two presenters coming up, Nicola Massarelli, who is a team leader in national accounts methodology, and Robert Leisch, who is a statistical officer in balance of payments and international investment positions. So over to you first, Nicola, and then Robert will follow afterwards. Please go ahead.
Thank you, John. So my name is Nicola Massarelli. I work for Eurostat, where I lead the team on national accounts methodology. And this presentation on macroeconomic statistics is shared with my colleague, Robert Leisch. Without further ado, let's start diving into macroeconomic statistics. As a short introduction, this presentation focuses in particular on national accounts and balance of payments, which are the two main pillars of macroeconomic statistics, although not the full set of macroeconomic statistics. National accounts are a complete and consistent system of accounts and balance sheets, which provide an integrated framework to describe economic interactions between entities of an economy. Could be within a region or a country or a group of countries, like the European Union. Balance of payments captures all the transactions between resident entities of one economy with residents of economies of the rest of the world. National accounts and balance of payments provide information to analyze the structure of economies and also their development over time. Actually, you are all familiar with gross domestic product, GDP, and you know that the values that appear more frequently in the news are the GDP change over time. So the development of macroeconomic indicators over time is mostly looked at. There are two main characteristics which are in common between national accounts and balance of payments. These are both accounting frameworks. So the first characteristic is a consistent bookkeeping system, and both are based on macroeconomic theory, and I will come to this in a second. What is the general idea behind national accounts and balance of payments? They faithfully represent the trillions of activities in the economy in a period of time. For national accounts, the source of value is production. That is the value of what is produced by all the actors, the units which are part of an economy. The value that is produced is then distributed to the recipients, that is those who contribute to production, and then it is spent or saved by the economic actors. These three actions, let's say the production, the distribution, and the consumption, allow to look at the national accounts from three different perspectives. So the same aggregates can be reconstructed through the production approach by adding up all the value added produced by the different economic actors. They can be reconstructed through the income approach by adding up the income that is perceived by the different economic actors, or they can be reconstructed through the expenditure approach, that is by putting together the value of the goods and services that are consumed or the money that is saved. Financial instruments in this framework act as mediums of exchange and store of wealth. In balance of payments, transactions related to non-financial assets, that is goods and services, and income based on financial assets, such as bonds, shares, and loans, are recorded in the current and in the capital accounts, and transactions involving financial assets are recorded in the financial account. In balance of payments, a surplus in the current and in the capital accounts shows that an economy is lending to the rest of the world in a specific period, of course. On the other hand, a deficit of the current capital accounts indicates that the economy is borrowing from the rest of the world. Those who have studied economics are familiar with this basic and very well-known equation that you see at the bottom of this slide, which shows the relation between GDP and some key macroeconomic aggregates. So this equation shows the expenditure approach of macroeconomic statistics, and this shows the link between national accounts and macroeconomic statistics. And you see that the last two terms in parentheses, these are exports minus imports, which shows that the national accounts and balance of payments are strictly integrated, and we need balance of payments to complete the macroeconomic framework given by national accounts. This slide provides a few examples of when national accounts play a crucial role. Actually, national accounts and its indicators are very much used in economic policy. For instance, the macroeconomic indicators have been crucial to support the implementation of the New Deal and at the times of the Great Depression, and to evaluate the effectiveness of the actions that had been put in place. Similarly, for the Marshall Plan, the national accounts were crucial to monitor the success of the Marshall Plan over time after the destruction of the Second World War. And in more recent times, macroeconomic indicators have been crucial to understand the impact of the financial crisis at the beginning of this century, and then the time of recovery of the world economy. And even more recent is the example of COVID-19, which had very heavy repercussions on the economies of the different countries, and the national accounts have been, and balance of payments, of course, macroeconomic statistics in general have been crucial to monitor the effects of COVID-19. First, the reduction in gross domestic products, and then the positive rebound that we have observed later on. In general, macroeconomic statistics are a compass for policymakers to navigate in the oceans of policy decisions, which can be calm, but at times can be very stormy. Macroeconomic statistics do not stand alone. They are part of a wider universe of statistics, and different statistical domains are complementary. So alongside macroeconomic statistics, we have population and social statistics, as well as environmental statistics and accounts. And it is very important to state that there is now a push, and the work is ongoing, to look at synergies between the different domains, and to build bridges, and to find synergies and complementarity among them. And we will see concrete examples in a few minutes. So within the universe of statistics, we have the galaxy of macroeconomic statistics, to which the system of national accounts and the balance of payments manual belong. So these are the two international standards for the compilation of national accounts and balance of payments worldwide. You see them these are the two bigger icons in the picture on the right. But as this picture shows, these are not the only components of this galaxy of macroeconomic statistics. There are other components, other standards that are also adopted worldwide and used by all the countries of the world, notably on the system of environmental economic accounts, which even has two separate references, a central framework and an ecosystem accounting framework. And then there are monetary and financial statistics, government finance statistics, and also activity and product classifications are integrated and harmonized with the other macroeconomic statistics standards. These standards are intended for use by all countries, even countries which are at different stages of economic development, and in particular, the SNA and the balance of payments manual provide an overarching framework which facilitate the integration of the different standards. We've seen the global standards for macroeconomic statistics used worldwide, but do we use them also in Europe as they are? Actually, for the balance of payments manual, we do. We use the global manual directly, but for national accounts, we don't. In Europe, we use the European system of accounts, and the current version is ESA 2010. ESA 2010 is, of course, largely consistent with the 2008 SNA, which is the latest version of the global standard. And this allows to compare data for the EU countries with data from, for instance, the United States, Canada, Japan, and the other economies worldwide. Then why we need to have a separate European standard, which basically because in Europe, the national account standard is a legal regulation to which European member states have to comply. The main reason for having a legislation on the system of European accounts is because it is used for administrative purposes in Europe, and there is a lot of money involved. It is used, for instance, to monitor the Maastricht criteria, the country's compliance to the Maastricht criteria through the excessive deficit procedure. It is used to determine the country contributions to the EU budget every year, and this is based on gross national income, which is another key macroeconomic indicator from national accounts. And national accounts are also used for the allocation of structural funds to the European regions. So this is why we need something that is binding in Europe, and why we have our own standard. I now hand over to Robert, who will continue with the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola, and good morning, everyone. Also from my side, my name is Robert Leisch. I'm working at Eurostat as a statistical officer in the Balance of Payments unit. As you can see here on the slides, that the manuals are being revised, and there is a current revision going on. The current revision is not a unique process, because these manuals were in the past updated roughly every 15 years to reflect and address changes in the economy and economic interactions that are the result of technical developments as well as legal changes. The remaining part of this presentation will focus on the update of the SNA and the BPM. This slide provides an overview of the foreseen timetable of the SNA and BPM update. It all started in March 2020 when the UNSC and BOPCOM launched the update process. From March 2020 until the second quarter of 2023, there was a conceptual development of research topics. During this period, guidance notes were being drafted. From August 2023 until September, after these guidance notes were endorsed and approved by the AAG and BOPCOM members, a global consultation on the list of recommendations was carried out. In March 2024, the UNSC as well as BOPCOM will approve these recommendations. From mid-2024, a global consultation on the first complete draft of the 2025 SNA and the BPM7 will take place. And finally, the UNSC and BOPCOM will adopt the new SNA and BPM in March 2025. In parallel, and these arrows below shows this, there is also work going on. Iterative drafting of the new SNA and BPM chapters has already started, as well as early implementation work based on countries' tests and experimental estimates is also carried out, and also handbooks on the compilation of data assets, marketing assets, natural capital, crypto assets will also be developed. As you can see on this slide, there are many actors involved in this update process. Guidance notes are drafted by statisticians from national institutions and international organizations that are members of the various task teams, and users have the possibility to comment on the recommendations of these guidance notes during a global review. So there is an interaction between the statisticians and the users going on. There are several thematic task teams that contribute to this update process, and each task team addresses and covers a specific subject area. Task teams consist of participants from national statistic institutes, national central banks, and also from international organizations. Some task teams deal with so-called cross-domain topics, like the globalization task team, that are relevant for both balance of payments and national accounts. Other task teams, like the task team on direct investment, deals only with issues that are relevant for balance of payments. Overall, there are over 300 experts that are members of all of these task teams. There is, of course, a close cooperation between the various task teams, and the ultimate aim is to have fully consistent manuals. The SNA and PPM update is an inclusive and worldwide process. During the global consultations, about 180 countries have participated in at least one of these global consultations. The main priority areas for the SNA and the PPM updates are globalization, digitalization, communication, and well-being and sustainability. For topics related to globalization, users will have, in general, access to more detailed data and information. In particular, there will be an increased focus on the structure and activities of multinational enterprises. There will be information become available for goods, services, and investment income based on the size of multinational enterprises, on the ownership structure, whether a multinational enterprise is foreign or domestic owned, or information will be also provided about the main activity of the multinational enterprise based on the NACE code. In addition, there will be also a clarification on how to record intellectual property products within MNEs. And the new manuals will include also a common agreed definition for special purpose entities or SPEs, and separate information on SPEs as an of which item that will be published for countries for which SPEs are important. Marketing assets will be treated as produced non-financial assets in the new manuals. The current treatment is produced non-financial assets. More detailed information will be provided on so-called factory-less good production arrangements, and a clarification for the treatment of digital intermediary platforms will also be included in the new manuals. Also, a more detailed breakdown for trading services will become available. In particular, there will be a split between computer and telecommunication services. And for other business services, there will be a split into research and development services, professional and management consulting services, trade-related services, operating leasing services, and other business services. When it comes to communication, the new manuals will be more harmonized when it comes to the use terminology and branding. For example, the balance of payments will not longer use the term net errors and omissions. It will use the term that is currently also used in national accounts, or for national accounts, the statistical discrepancy will be then the term that will also become relevant for the balance of payments manual. And in addition, the language itself of many terms and definitions will be less technical and more user-friendly. For example, consumption of fixed capital will be renamed into depreciation. A common glossary for macroeconomic statistics will also be developed, as well as an assessment framework to measure each country's alignment with the international standards. Thanks a lot for your attention, and now I will give it back to you, Nicola.
Thank you, Robert. So I will continue with digitalization, mainly because I was involved in the activities of the task team that developed the recommendations for the update of the system of national accounts regarding digitalization. In this slide, you see the main topics that are being considered for the SNA update. So the first item is a framework to measure the digital economy. Actually, there is a strong user demand on measuring the digital economy. And so we have tried to think about how we could meet this demand. In the end, we have chosen not to define the digital economy, first of all, because this would be too rigid and probably different users would have different opinions about what exactly are the borders of the digital economy, and also because this is a quickly evolving domain, so the definition would quickly be outdated. So what we have done, we have elaborated a framework which includes all the relevant elements. That is the digital products, the digital operators, and also the digital operations, let's say, the way of delivering products in a digital way. And this allows a flexible analysis that different users can adapt to their own needs. The second, and this is in the form of digital supply and use tables for those who are familiar with these tools. The second big innovation that we are introducing is recording of data assets in the national accounts. A few years ago, the Economist came with a cover which stated that the data are the new oil. And actually, there are many digital companies which base their value especially on the information embedded in the data that they own, because this gives them a lot of commercial possibilities. And at the moment, the feeling is that the value of data assets is not fully represented in the national accounts. And so in the next edition, we want to fill this gap. And then there is a list of new digital developments that we have seen during these years. I think all the keywords there are familiar to you. All these features are not mentioned explicitly in the system of national accounts. So again, we want to fill this gap, although we have the feeling that they are already covered in GDP and the other macroeconomic statistics. It is important to specify how and where they should appear in the accounts to make sure that all countries do it in a comparable way. So these features are artificial intelligence. You know, ChatGPT is very fashionable nowadays. Cloud computing, which is becoming a quite big business worldwide. Digital intermediation platforms. We are all familiar with Uber, Airbnb, eBay, and you name them. A lot of talking about crypto assets and non-fungible tokens, which are maybe a bit less fashionable nowadays, but these are innovations that for sure are there to stay. Dealing with free digital products, how to account for content on TikTok or YouTube, for instance. So we are looking into this. And as well as looking into how to deal with the fintech and other financial innovations. And then I mentioned before that there is a push to integrate the different statistical domains, and in particular to take more into account the impact of economic activities on people's well-being and on environmental sustainability. So there are a few proposals that are being introduced are being made for introduction in the next version of the SNA. In particular, the next SNA will present the economic framework within a broader framework that also takes into account aspects of well-being and sustainability. This is a very important innovation because it's a recognition that actually the economic activity has impact on on other important aspects of human life. A very important innovation is the introduction of measures of distributions of household income, consumption, and wealth. At the moment, the national accounts only provide aggregate measures. They tell us if a country as a whole is growing or is shrinking. But if the country is becoming richer, it doesn't tell us if everyone in the country is becoming richer or only a few people. With the new version of the system of national accounts, it should be possible to have information on how income is distributed in a country. And then we envisage to include a number of supplementary accounts on specific topics, including on labor accounts, human capital and education, healthcare, unpaid household service works, etc. In the field of environmental sustainability, the main innovation consists in introducing depletion of natural resources as a cost of production, which will have an impact on domestic product, at least on the net measure of domestic product. And for this, the next SNA will also give more prominence to the net measures. What does it mean? At the moment, the headline indicator is gross domestic product. It means that it counts the value of production of a country in a given period of time without deducting some costs, in particular the depreciation of the fixed assets and without deducting the depletion of national resources. So to make the depletion of natural resources visible, it is important instead to put more emphasis on the net measures. And then the visibility of natural assets will be hugely increased. First of all, because they will be recorded as a separate group of assets, because they will include renewable energy resources as a separate asset, because they will provide a distinction of specific types of natural assets. And then, last but not least, we are also clarifying the recording of emission permits, which are very important measures to curb climate change. So, thank you for your attention. This slide contains a few references to websites where you can find material regarding the update of the SNA and the balance of payments manual. And if you are interested, I invite you to visit these websites and read further. Thank you again, and back to you, John.
Thank you very much, Nicola and Robert. That was really a deep dive into a lot of detail on the national accounts and the balance of payments, which feature in our macroeconomic statistics. So we've had the presentations, and now we'll move on to the questions and answers part of the process. Just to remind you that you can still post questions. I see there's quite a few questions come in on slido.com. There you have the number to remind you on the left. Please feel free to post your questions. So what we're going to do now is constitute a panel of experts to try to answer your questions. So Nicola and Robert will join us, and we'll also be joined by Christine Gersberger. Christine is the Deputy Head of Unit in the National Accounts Production Area. Welcome, Christine.
Hello, John. Happy to be here with you.
Thank you very much, Christine. So here's the distinguished panel, and what we're going to do is go through some of the questions we've received in Slido. So the first question I see is, when will the new manuals, the SNA 2025, the ESA, and the new balance of payments manuals be implemented in the EU? This one is for Robert, please, I think.
Thank you, John. Yes, currently it's being foreseen that the new SNA, the new ESA, the BPM7 will be implemented in autumn 2029 in the EU. This will coincide with a benchmark revision for the EU member states, and this is also a bit then relevant, I think, for the question 2, where I will now hand over.
Thank you very much, Robert. Indeed, a benchmark revision is where I think we open up a long time series of data and make many, many changes. Nicola, please, for the next question, which is perhaps Christine is better placed to answer this one. When will balance of payments and national accounts data, they'll be disseminated? Will there be a corresponding backcasting of the existing time series? Christine, please.
Yes, so the consistency both compared over the countries and over time is really an essential feature of national accounts and balance of payments. So anytime the methodology is revised, it is really very important and crucial that it is done consistently over time. So indeed, during the benchmark revisions, the entire time series is open for revision, and it is expected that the countries implement the changes across the entire time series.
Thank you very much, Christine. That seems to be a very important user need for the data. The next question is very topical, and I think it was referred to in the presentations, but it's a difficult one for Nicola, please. Will the updated macroeconomic standards allow to account for the impact of economic activities on climate change? Nicola, please.
Yes, thank you, John, and thank you for the question. Actually, it's quite tricky. Let's say the short answer is that national accounts do not and will not directly allow to measure the impact of the economic activity on climate change. However, as we showed in the presentation, national accounts do not stand alone. They are part of a wider system. And actually, official statistics collect information on climate change in the context of environmental statistics and accounts. And so we have to read all the statistical information together as a system. And so by combining information coming from different statistical sources, we can infer what is the impact of economic activity on climate change. With the update of the standards, we are moving towards a higher integration of the different statistical domains. So these links will become even more evident in the future.
Thank you, Nicola. I think that's a common issue amongst the users of our statistics, is that they would hope that one set of statistics could solve all the questions, but of course you do need to put them together and see how they develop alongside each other. The next question is a bit more practical. From where will statisticians take the information on the new features that will be included in the revised SNA and BPM? Are suitable data sources already available? Perhaps I'll ask Nicola to kick this one off, and then maybe Robert can join in as well. Nicola first, please.
Yes, again, thank you for this question, which is indeed very practical. Yeah, there is a lot of additional information that is being proposed to be added to the national accounts and balance of payments. So do we already have all the information? Probably for some of the new concepts, there is information already available. We can dig into the sources that we already have and let's say exploit them more widely. But it is true that on other concepts, the information is currently lacking. So statisticians will have to work to fill these gaps. Of course, national accounts are based on, let's say, primary data sources, that is surveys or administrative data. So we have to closely collaborate with our colleagues to see what is missing and how we can fill these gaps. We've already started. I just make an example. For instance, we recently we have added in some business and household surveys questions on the use of cloud computing and artificial intelligence. This is just a concrete example, but of course we will have to do more in the future to complete the picture. Thank you, John. Back to you, John.
Thank you, Nicola. So maybe, Robert, you'd like to add something to this?
Yes, I will try to cover a bit the balance of payments side. So first, it can be highlighted that some of the more detailed, more granular information that will become mandatory with the next balance of payments manual, we already have some of this information in the EU because we are a bit more advanced when it comes, for example, to the deeper breakdown for trade and services. So some information is already available for the EU, for EU member states. And for other, perhaps more complex topics like the recording and new treatment of emission permits, the treatment of these crypto assets or this change in the treatment of marketing assets, there will be task teams, global task teams that will address these issues. They will meet, they will have workshops, they will draft compilation guides that will address potential data sources, so how these new items or the revised treatment of these items can be then correctly recorded. But this work has just started.
Thank you very much, Robert, and also thanks to Nicola. So we have another question here, which is really asking where can I find the mentioned manuals on the Eurostat website? And I'll tell you what, the best idea is that we'll post the links to those manuals in Slido so everybody can have a look at them and find them if they want to read. So we have the next question, which is, it says that global standards are laid down within World Economic Organizations, such as World Trade Organization, WTO, and the OECD. So perhaps I can ask you, Nicola, to answer that question. I guess it's about the linkages between these other systems and the national accounts and balance of payments.
Okay, yeah, thank you for the question. Actually, the setup of the governance of balance of payments and national accounts has been illustrated in the presentation, but basically, just as a short recap, national accounts is under the umbrella of 5 big international organizations that are the United Nations, the OECD, Eurostat, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund, while balance of payments is overseen by the Balance of Payments Committee, which is coordinated by International Monetary Fund. And then each macroeconomic statistics standard has its own governing body. In most cases, these are coordinated by the United Nations. But for all the different standards, of course, among the different groups that oversee the different standards, there is a strict cooperation, collaboration, of course, to ensure that the standards are as integrated as possible and talk to each other, so that the figures that they produce in the end are compatible and can be analyzed together. Of course, each standard uses its own language, sometimes its own classifications, but then there is an effort among the different groups to create bridge tables and yeah, to ensure that it is possible to make the link between them. I hope this answers the question.
Thank you very much, Nicola. It very much relates to this idea that there are systems of statistics and they actually are interacting with each other, and you can use them in this way. So let's have a look at the next question. Are the macroeconomic statistics too much impacted by multinational enterprises' efforts to minimize their tax payments? So I think this comes back to the presentation part on globalization. And in this case, perhaps I'll ask Robert to kick us off with the answer. Robert, please.
Thank you, John. Yeah, I mean, this is a bit of a tricky question. And for some countries, of course, you can argue that their figures are a bit blurred. I mean, there are countries, of course, that are quite interesting for MNEs to set up these special purpose entities. With the new manuals, at least, there will be an of-which reporting. You will get information of transactions being carried out by these so-called special purpose entities. We have to record in national accounts and balance of payments transactions based on the change of economic ownership. Usually, I mean, there are some exceptions, but usually this also coincides with the change of legal aspects. So an MNE, of course, is interested from a legal point of view, perhaps to record profits in a certain country where taxes on profits are low. And whenever this happens, of course, we have to follow this in our standards to record this as well. However, if you have some insight into balance of payments, and then you see perhaps a high surplus in the goods account or in the services account, but then usually when a country sets up an SPE, this is then to some extent balanced out in the so-called primary income account, where we then see that profits are either directly distributed to the ultimate country where the parent enterprise is located, or they are put under this so-called reinvested or retained earnings item. So this is a bit visible, and if you compare then perhaps not only the surplus in the goods and services account, but you take also into account then the primary income balance, or overall the current account balance, this should give you a more stable and more comparable pictures, at least from the BOP side. In addition, I also would like to mention it's not only MNEs that are perhaps distort the picture a bit. Some countries, for example, they are heavily dependent on so-called remittances, personal transfers. For some countries, they account for 10, 15, perhaps even 20% of GDP. This is also a cross-border transactions. And if you look at their figures, you also have to understand how perhaps their gross disposable income is so much higher compared to their GDP. Or some other countries, like, for example, Luxembourg, they have around 40% of the workforce are so-called cross-border commuters. So this is recorded again in the primary income account under compensation of employees. And if you take then Luxembourg's GDP, you divide it by the residents, you get a huge amount, perhaps one of the highest GDPs per capita. But of course, you have to be aware, 30–40% of the workforce are non-residents. So you should better take then perhaps also to look at the primary income account that deduct this. So this is a complex question, and I can say yes for some countries, but they are not only blurred or distorted by MNEs, but also by other factors like cross-border workers, this or when personal transfers, remittances are being received. I don't know if this answers this question completely.
No, thank you, Robert. It's a very difficult area. We're entering the last 5 minutes of our webinar, so last chance to get questions in. I know we've got quite a lot there. We'll deal with as many as we can. A question on revisions. Yeah, revisions in national accounts data are annoying. Can't you stop them? Christine, can we stop the revisions?
Yes, indeed. Sometimes revisions are annoying, but clearly we shouldn't stop them because revisions are there to make the data better. Maybe as a general background, we have to distinguish between regular revisions and benchmark revisions. So already as a general feature, indeed, you will observe that the first data that are published in terms of a GDP growth rate are usually not the final one. So countries make their first estimates based on a limited set of data, and then as they are receiving better data, they will revise and improve their estimates. Then for benchmark revisions, of course, the problem is even more complex and challenging, because there really all the sources and methods are reviewed. So there can indeed be changes in the GDP level, for example, that is resulting from these compilations, but also in the GDP growth rate. So you can observe that indeed, when you are doing analysis after a benchmark revision, your economic history changes a bit to some extent. So what is really crucial is that these benchmark revisions are introduced in a very systematic way, in a very transparent way across countries. And actually, Eurostat with the National Statistical Institutes, but also the central bank and their national central banks have been really very active in improving the process and also the transparency on how to inform and to prepare on these benchmark revisions.
Thank you very much, Christine. So we're really I'm going to put together two questions from the chat to finish off. So first of all, a listener said that they missed some parts of the presentation. They'd be interested to know how digitalization, including AI, will affect the recording of economic activities. And we have a related question: is the economy changing too fast for macroeconomic statistics to keep up? Nicola, what do you think?
Yes, interesting questions, both. Well, first of all, to the first part of the question, I come back to the presentation. Indeed, there is a lot coming on the side of digitalization. I think that the main element that will directly impact the size of macroeconomic statistics, and notably of gross domestic product, will be the inclusion of the data as a new produced asset. The feeling is that at the moment data are not, at least not fully represented in the accounts, that there is a part which is missing, and so the current work aims at filling this gap. So this will have an impact on GDP. The rest of the work on digitalization is instead aimed at clarifying the treatment of other digital innovations. For instance, artificial intelligence. We think that artificial intelligence is already included in the accounts. It's just that it is not separately visible. And the same is for cloud computing, the digital intermediation platforms, etc. So the aim here is rather to clarify in an explicit way how these new features contribute to the economic activity, and clarify where exactly they should be recorded in the accounts. So this is the first part of the question. The second part is more general. Is the economy evolving too fast for the macroeconomic statistics standards? Actually, it's true that we are seeing a lot of fast innovations, but I think that the path at which the statistical standards evolve is at the same time the right one, in the sense that these are important standards with well-established indicators used for very important policy actions and administrative purposes, and we cannot change them continuously. So we have to be careful when we update the standards. Only when we have a critical mass of innovations we can have a full revision.
Thank you very much, Nicola. That was really tricky questions to answer given the time we have. So I'd like to thank all the panelists, Nicola, Robert and Christine. And we move into the last few words from me. I'd like to thank all the viewers from joining us. I hope you've seen a lot of the world of macroeconomic statistics this morning. Thanks a lot for your questions. We didn't manage to answer all the questions, but of course, we will try to put the answers into Slido. So if you want to go into Slido afterwards in the coming day or two, you will see further answers posted. And indeed, in Slido, there's a short user survey. So in other words, if you want to give us some feedback on what you thought about the webinar. So if you do have any further questions on macroeconomic statistics, you can always come to Eurostat user support. And this again will be posted in the Slido, so you can follow up with any questions there. This is the last webinar from Eurostat for this year, so I take the opportunity to wish all of our viewers a very happy Christmas, happy holidays and a happy new year. And we'll be back in the new year with further webinars. Thanks very much, everybody, and have a good rest of the day. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.